Hey, She Ace That listeners, find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Every subscribe, like, and follow goes a long way, and I can't thank you all enough for your support. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to She Ace That. It's your host, Alexandra, and today I have my best friend here, and we're really about to get into everything about sports, life, volleyball. Alyssa Kerrigan's story has everything that you want to hear, so let's dive into it. Alyssa, take us back to the time that you're 14 years old and you were switching schools and you walk into tryouts not knowing anybody.
That was terrifying. I went to Catholic school, K through 8th. So then when I went to high school, I was switching to public school. Everybody was coming from the same district. So they already had their friends from middle school. And walking into tryouts was really scary. I didn't know a single person. And when it comes to volleyball, you want a warm-up partner. You want your friend's support during tryouts. And having to break out of my shell and go up to girls I didn't know or say, hey, do you want to warm up with me? It was really scary. But yeah, it was obviously everything turned out great, but not fun for sure on the first day at least.
This was obviously a different time in life for me, but even switching schools in third grade was hard because you're just going into a whole new environment, and obviously I wasn't playing sports then, so it wasn't as, I feel, impactful. But at the same time, it's no matter what grade you are, and especially as you get older, you're going into new friendship circle dynamics, the new sport dynamics, and so I think there's so much impact there. So how did you handle that nervousness of going into a new school, new program, and what was your first interaction maybe with somebody at tryouts?
My first interactions were probably when you're sitting down at the bleachers and you're putting your shoes on, doing your stuff to get ready. I think I tried to break out of my shell then just because what's coming. Drills are coming, warm-ups are coming. And when you can go stretch next to somebody or do your passing routine, whatever it is, getting that out of the way is definitely just what you have to do. I will say too, as far as life goes, volleyball was so helpful being a fall sport because tryouts were before school started. So it made me less nervous on my first day of school because I had somebody from volleyball in all my classes. So I at least knew one familiar face and I could go sit by them or just have some sort of comfort knowing that I recognize somebody here and somebody will talk to me. But everybody was nice too, though. Everybody wants to make the team. Everybody wants to support each other for the most part. So it's not like it was that hard. You just have to take that first step and say, hey, I'm Alyssa, want to be my friend. I know obviously you get really almost starstruck by the seniors at tryouts and they're on varsity. They're so tall or they're so good and you want to be as good as them and you want to build up your skills to be them one day. So I feel if anything, that was probably more nerve-wracking than anything else, just because you could get on a court with them or you could have to dig a hit from them or whatever it is. So I feel that was probably the scariest.
I agree because even in 8th grade, so we went to a varsity game in 8th grade as a team to see how that worked. And I just remember watching the varsity game and I was, holy crap, I don't know how I'll ever get to that level. I can't imagine my body because we're so much younger and so much less, I feel, developed in general and less coordinated. How the heck am I ever going to get to that level? It's such a bizarre difference between a freshman and a junior or senior for probably all sports. And I don't think there was very many freshmen that did make varsity, but when they did, it was not only because of skills, it was more development or height, or there was certain little characteristics that gave them something to provide for that team.
I think even that difference between freshman year and sophomore year is huge. Now you're in this environment, you're used to it, you're not the lowest on the totem pole. And that just in itself, that experience brings more confidence too.
And just to preface for everybody, Alyssa and I were both on the freshman team as freshmen, so we were on the same team. We had some girls in our grade make JV, but I feel those girls were the ones that played a competitive club team prior or already had a much larger backing than others. So it is just interesting how as a freshman, yes, you have that opportunity to make JV, but I feel club teams really help. And then also it's really hard to expect playing time as a freshman on a higher team, regardless of whether it's JV or varsity, just because you said the seniority, the comfortability of the program, the coaches, the other girls, it's just so different as a freshman. When was the moment that you knew you found your people and these were going to be some of your friendships for forever?
Honestly, it was probably probably within the first week of practices, you're now spending every day together for a couple hours a day, and you're figuring out who you really click with and who you don't. And then going to school, that adds the social dynamic too. So I honestly feel within the first week, I was connecting with some girls over others and building those friendships. And obviously, your high school friendships, sometimes the ones you think are forever aren't forever, but at the moment, those were my closest friends. And then you grow up and you learn which ones stay and which ones don't. And that could be for a variety of reasons, but obviously we stayed.
Yeah, stuck with me forever, sister. It's interesting too, though, because I feel like the first week of any new team, even if you know some of the girls, obviously that's a huge comfortability aspect. But let's say you're trying out for a club team and you don't know anybody else trying out for that same club. It's that first week is where I always remember trying to make those initial friendships or finding one person to be my ally or one person that I can look at to laugh or make a joke with. There's like specific times in every single club season, besides obviously the one that we played together on because we knew majority of our team, which we'll get into later in the episode. There's always that first initial reaction of, okay, who is willing to open up and be friends with me? Who's willing to make the jokes? Who's willing to break the ice? And if you are the one to take initiative in those situations, it's very rare that it will bite you in the butt. It's almost always rewarding to go out of your way because even if somebody knows another person on the team, you're the one taking initiative to break that ice. And 9 times out of 10, I feel everybody else feels somewhat similar too. We just don't realize or we have our face on. We're here for volleyball. We're here to practice. We're here to get better, but we're also here to make friends. The second that you are allowing yourself to be a little vulnerable, going out there, talking to others, it just makes the whole rest of the season so much better sooner.
Yeah. I think too, once that pressure of tryouts is over, you know which team you're on, you know who you're with, that just takes so much off your shoulders and you can be more yourself and have that personality. And I think every girl is almost looking for the girl that's going to make the team laugh or break the ice. And it was definitely not always me. I did eventually get to be that person, but at the beginning, it wasn't. I always appreciated the girl that was making people laugh or was bonding the team in a social dynamic versus a skill dynamic.
Was there anybody that stands out to you that did that?
Honestly, the first person that comes to my head is Hannah Henson on JV. She's
Yeah.
just a light and she
Yeah.
just didn't take herself too seriously and she just made everybody feel happy, I feel.
Yeah, no, I totally remember that. And even on Varsity too, right? When we were seniors, she was on Varsity. It was so fun to just have somebody lighthearted. And she probably felt the same way, just trying to break that ice as being younger as well. So that is funny. Yeah, I feel like for me, freshman year, it was Haley Huriski.
Oh,
Yeah, she just definitely made things less serious. And obviously, we really didn't continue our volleyball journey with her for very long. But those people who stop playing are still super impactful of the time when we were playing. Everybody stops playing for a reason. Even when I made varsity, some of the freshmen who were on varsity were the ones that are trying to break the ice and fulfill that role. So I just think it's interesting. There's somewhat of a common theme sometimes of the youngers taking that initiative. And I think it's pretty cool because then it does break the ice and open you up to everybody else in different ways.
yeah.
So did you ever think about not trying out because you were new? Or did you think since it was the beginning of the year, you were going to go into the school year having some more people by your side? Did that never really cross your mind?
It never crossed my mind, but for, two reasons. I would say one was it was so nice that it started before school started to just even knowing a name in class, even if we weren't friends. Oh, I recognize that person. I'll see them after school. But two, so I played volleyball since the 4th grade. I loved volleyball and there was no way that's something I wasn't going to do. I knew that was my place in high school. That was my sport. I had tried other sports and I knew I wasn't going to be playing them. So it wasn't even across my mind that I wouldn't play.
You found your footing freshman year. We all did. It's a great goal to obviously make JV after your freshman year. You don't really have another choice. And then from there, there's these weird gaps and decisions that go on between the JV and varsity standpoint. And a lot of times the differentiation factors are not always black and white. It's not always because somebody's better or worse. It's not always because somebody's taller or shorter or they can fill a certain role versus others. It's more so because of numbers. And some coaches are very strict on how many girls they're willing to take on a team and trying to build their program as well throughout the lower level teams additionally. So I definitely want to get into you playing on JV as a sophomore, and then we'll get into the later years as well. But are there any key things or memories that, you can think of when you saw that you made JV the next year after freshman?
I remember being excited, and I remember it was mostly sophomores on the team. I think there was maybe only 1 or 2 freshmen. So it was all people that I had essentially already played with and had already built relationships with, plus a couple of the girls who had made JV as freshmen were also on JV again as sophomores. So got to build those relationships too. But I think I was just excited more than anything. Obviously, I would have loved to have made varsity, but there's nothing wrong at all with being a sophomore on JV. I think that's a very natural step. And I loved that team too. We had fun, we did well. And my freshman coach was now my JV coach as well. So that was an easier transition too, because she knew how a lot of us played, how a lot of us worked together, what we were good at versus what we weren't. So I think that made it more cohesive too.
You're already comfortable with those girls. They're in your grade. It's a pretty good dynamic. And then for my situation, I made varsity as a sophomore. I was the only one in our grade though on that team. And I think it was long term meant to be just because it helped me understand that level a little bit more and the expectations and already be practicing with girls at a much higher level than I was. And it's funny too, because I didn't even make that team in the position that I was going to play for the rest of my volleyball career. So it was just a really weird dynamic, but I think it was hard for me to not be on the same team with all my other friends. I felt sometimes I was isolated because there would be team bonding things that my friends were going to, which was fine, or they would have similar practice times unlike I did. And I feel sometimes there's hard dynamics when you are either the only person out of your friend group on a team, regardless if it's a higher or lower level, just because there's this feeling of missing out, but also, I don't know, sometimes this feeling of judgment. I did feel sometimes when we found out which teams we're on, it's an initial, I don't know how to explain, like an initial judgment and reaction of how other people will feel about it. You're almost looking for validation of, oh, should that person be on that level? Should they not be on that at that level already? And I feel like for me, given that it was a unique situation, they were trying to build me up as a setter, which obviously was not going to happen long term. But we went undefeated freshman year and I was setting all the way around, couldn't set you outside for the life of me and things that. But then I just remember not having as much support from all my friends, I feel, when I made it. And it's not that I don't think people weren't happy for me. I just, again, think it goes back to this initial judgment level where it's, oh, that doesn't really make sense. Should have probably been more of a positive. And it was easily obvious that to some it was a negative. And so I think that goes for all levels in general. If you're a person that makes JV as a freshman and you're the only one as a freshman or any dynamic in that realm, it's there's no right or wrong answer or feeling or I don't know, any way to really validate it. You just have to go through the motions and accept it, especially if you want to continue playing the sport you love.
For lack of a better term, it's almost a survivor's guilt type situation where I'm really happy to have made this team and I'm really excited about it. But my friends aren't here and they probably wanted to make it over me or whatever it is. Obviously, you shouldn't let that deter you. You earned it. You deserve to be there. But to your point, it's hard when you're the only one in your grade or your best friend is maybe on a different team and you're doing different team bondings or whatever it is. And it's just, yeah, a different thing that you have to navigate.
Yeah.
But you should never feel bad about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into the JV as a junior or making varsity as a senior, any of that stuff, I feel it's interesting how our school handled tryouts because I thought it was cool, though, that you were given an opportunity to sit one-on-one with a coach, whether you made the team or were cut from the team. I think for girls that were cut from the team, there could have been more other opportunities for them to still be a part of it, right? You don't always have to be on the roster to still be a part of a program or a team. So I don't really think our coaches at the time were fully cognizant of that. I think it was more of just a feedback session, which I still think is super beneficial and helpful. But then for us, they did varsity first. So if you were called in, if you were called in the first X amount of people plus whoever tried out from those higher grades, you assumed that. And I think that was a huge thing for me was I was called earlier than expected or that I could have foreseen. And then everybody was still waiting in the gym. And I just knew that everybody else knew, but then nobody said anything immediately after knowing. Do you know what I mean? So people knew exactly what team I made. And then it was this dead period of they know, but I'm just sitting here celebrating by myself because everybody else is still in the gym waiting for what team they're going to be on. And then it goes for JV next, and then it goes for freshman next. And I'm sure you can relate to that in other ways too. And it's just this weird process that, again, I think has really great aspects to it, but then it's also very pinpointing as well.
Yeah, definitely could have used just a random name generator. But one thing I think I did appreciate was once you were told you were asked to leave, not go back into
Yes.
the gym.
Yep.
So I did appreciate that in later years, as we'll talk about. But yeah, I think not having everybody come back together, breaking everything down before those conversations are had, gives everybody their space to process, accept, do what they need to do, and not have to face anybody after.
When I coached at Western, we did that too. The same similar dynamic of probably starting at the higher levels and then working down. The only time that did bite us, I feel, in the butt was when it got to the JV levels, whether people would turn down or accept the JV opportunities. You almost want to gauge who will accept or decline those and won't take a place in the roster no matter the level in the program ahead of time versus already offering certain girl spots at different levels. I think there's just a hard situation when it comes to actually accepting the offers because
Mhm.
obviously if you're not content with something, you don't have to accept it. But at the same time, it is impactful to the program because you're still an important person and you still have an opportunity to continue providing support in other areas and a potential future role that you could change the entire dynamic of a team too. With that, I do want to get into junior year discussions and
Mhm.
navigating those tryouts, navigating the differences of levels of teams and your experience going into a junior after making JV as a sophomore.
Yeah. I mean, from what I remember from tryouts, and keep me honest, there were a lot of girls in our grade, specifically junior year, trying out.
Mhm.
Still, I think a good handful of seniors, but I do think juniors had the largest turnout, maybe besides freshmen, but for those upper levels. And candidly, I thought I was doing great. I thought I was good. I thought I was in that upper tier of our class. I played starting on sophomore JV, so I thought I was set. And then I went into the room and we had that conversation and I was offered JV and I wasn't expecting it. First of all, I said I thought I was good. I was like, yeah, we're good to go. I got that kind of news and they sat there and they were like, you're going to be a captain. You're going to play all the way around. They were trying to tell me the positives of this offer. And I just sat there and listened and then said, thank you. Yeah, I'm going to play, whatever. And then I left and then I cried. I went home and I cried. I think I cried in the car because I just, I was shocked and I thought I deserved a varsity spot, but I knew I wasn't going to stop playing because I loved volleyball and I wanted to play and I wanted to play my senior year, and quitting that year almost takes you out of the running then at that point. And it was really hard. And I do to this day think that there was a little bit more than skill set involved in that decision. And maybe I'm wrong, but I just tried to keep a positive mindset. One of my other friends, who was also a junior, made JV as well. So I wasn't 100% by myself. And that was huge too, just knowing, okay, I'm not the only junior on JV. But what they told me was true. I was a captain. I played all the way around, which I'd never done in the past. If you know me, I'm not the most strongest back court player. And that grew my skill set there, at least. I played a lot and learned a lot, developed leadership. A lot of things came out of it that were positives, but in the moment, it sucked and you can't sugarcoat it. It hurt.
That is such a tough dynamic, and I feel it didn't help too because on varsity, there was multiple sophomores that were already on varsity the year before as freshmen who
Mhm.
made varsity, and it's I don't know if it matters, but I don't know if there's rules of if you make varsity once, can they push you back down to a JV level? You know what I'm saying? I wonder if
Yeah.
you're stuck at the level or you can go back down. So let's go back to when you found out and the car ride home. Was there somebody you called first? Do you remember how you navigated that initial reaction?
So my aunt had to drive me home because I wasn't 16 yet, or I didn't have a car or something that I don't know. I didn't drive myself to the tryout, but my aunt drove me home and we called my mom and I cried to them both. And they were as supportive as they could be. Obviously, they were disappointed for me. And they both, maybe they have some bias because they're my family, but they both thought I was good. They both thought I was a shoe in for varsity too. But never did my mom or anybody try and be, I'm going to go talk to the coach or I'm going to go see what's up. That's not my mom. That's not my family. If I had a problem, it was on me to go talk to them about it. And if it was my decision to say yes and play on JV, then they were going to support it and they were going to come to my games and cheer me on and all the things. And that was that. Had I asked them if I needed extra support, of course, they'll help me. They'll speak up for me. They'll do whatever I need them to do. But it is not in their inclination to step in for me or do anything that I didn't ask them to do. But they were supportive, obviously. They loved going to my games too. So they were going to show up no matter what. But I think we all felt that disappointment.
In your situation, especially, I think obviously you and your family handled it very maturely because I feel most people would immediately lash out or want specific answers, which I'm assuming they tried to give you during the conversation, but that doesn't mean that you got what you deserved or needed. And I will say, coaches are not perfect. People are not perfect. Parents are not perfect. But at the end of the day, how we react to things this is super impactful. It doesn't shock me, obviously, how you and your family handled it. And those disappointments are still beyond valid. And I feel we go through disappointments throughout our whole lives. We go through disappointments, especially in sports. And okay, what's our next step and next goal for our current situation that we're handed? For me, I've seen plenty of parents jump in those conversations. And part of me doesn't blame them. I just think they could be handled in a certain manner if they are required. And there's plenty of situations where I think parents and coaches should be communicating to a point. But at the end of the day, when you're an upperclassman in high school, you're headed towards being an adult, you're working towards having your own voice, figuring out your path. And I just have always really looked up to Alyssa and her family because it was one of those things that she didn't have to accept. And it's not that she was fully accepting of it and how she was treated or not acknowledged in some ways, but it was just very eye-opening. And I was selfishly grateful the year after when she was a starter on varsity as an outside, which is very rare to get just because there are so many outsides in general. And people with even more experience on varsity, let's say, than you were given. And you were still able to have that full confidence from being a captain on JV, literally getting touches more than anybody else on your entire team for a whole season. We had an amazing club season that year. It was so fun because we just had us from high school plus a couple others in a different program near us. It was the most fun state team we've ever had. We won the craziest. Remember that 4-weekend power play? And we won that. And I was like, how the heck did we win that? But there were so many more things to come just because you accepted the position that you were given. And I'm just so grateful to have seen all the memories and even better things that were to come after that, because I think a lot of people take that as their, okay, I'm done. I'm leaving the sport. I'm over giving these opportunities. And to a point, I don't blame them. I would have understood if you were left this. I'm out of here. I don't want to deal with this program. These coaches, they clearly aren't seeing this vision for me that I feel. But at the end of the day, I do think you made the best decision for yourself. And I think what led you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was your passion for the sport and from you playing since elementary school. And you weren't going to let anything stop you from doing that. And I really look up to you in that way. Girls that I coached who turned down JV opportunities, it sucked because it was a similar situation. So many juniors, there's 0% chance we're going to take them all. And it's not that any of them didn't deserve it, but we looked at attitude. We looked at other areas than just even skill set. And I think when it comes to you, you had pretty much zero issues regarding attitude, regarding skills. There was nothing tangible that was related to why you didn't deserve a spot in varsity. But then when I look at the other girls that we still gave an opportunity to be a part of a program, be a part of a team, and they were still working on some of those things that were very clear and apparent to more than just the coaches, let's say. It was just disappointing to see the entitlement almost. And what's crazy too is 5 of these juniors would have been on the same team on JV. So it would have added a little bit of their same community. They were the same friend groups. And that doesn't mean that's why you should play a sport, but it was so heartbreaking as a coach to feel I was ending their sports careers. I'm very cognizant of that and sensitive to that. And I never would purposefully want to end somebody's sports career. But at the same time, it is up to you as a player, an athlete, as an adult to make those decisions for yourself. And I think most people know what the best decision is for them, but sometimes people don't weigh the future opportunities that are to come.
I will say, not that it bit me in the butt, but it did a little bit that because I was so passionate and my attitude was so good, they kind of knew I was going to take that JV spot. Whereas some of the other girls who could have gotten that same offer wouldn't have, and then they wouldn't have enough girls, period. So it played against me a little bit in that moment. But you said I got so many touches and my setter was so great. And we both moved into varsity at the end of the season and played with you guys in the playoffs and tournaments and stuff. And then she was our varsity setter and we already had such a great relationship. She knew where I liked the sets. She knew how to get me what I needed. And that was a huge plus going into senior year for sure.
I totally agree. Did you have a inkling of accepting JV versus not accepting JV? Do you remember that decision point?
In the moment, I think it was so quick, right? They're just giving you their explanation and they're so you're joining the team.
What do I say? I'm not prepared to say no.
Exactly. And I think I
Yeah.
just said yes. But again, even if I had gone home and thought about it, I don't think I would have ever said no. Hard to say in hindsight, but I don't think I would have.
I always try to put myself in your shoes. And again, in hindsight, you never know, but I feel like I'd be the same way. I just wouldn't want it taken from me. And yes, it sucks and it sucked for you. But again, what we know now is okay, it was worth it. But I just hope everybody listening today, if you are in this similar situation, you're not alone. It happens frequently and it's most of the time not even a personal thing. Again, not related to any capabilities. It's just how either some coaches have certain political backings in high school clubs, especially. There's definitely something called favoritism out there, and people can say they don't have favorites, but we know everybody does in one way or another. So you were a captain. So how did it feel being a junior captain for those freshmen? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I remember being, I think, the most positive I've ever been on a team as a junior, which sounds shocking. You'd think maybe I would just show up to practice and be, okay, great, I'm on this team and this sucks and whatever. But I remember just trying to show that this was not the end of me. And I think I was also still very aware that I could impress the varsity coach, even though I wasn't at your varsity practices or whatever it is. And I just remember pushing everyone harder in a positive way, though. For some reason, that was the year I was the most in my sports best shape ever. And we would do suicides and I would be leading the pack, which, if you know me, never happens because I hate running and I'm slow. I think I tried to just make it fun, especially knowing some of those freshmen weren't going to get as much playing time and still had a lot of skills to build and things that I just remember trying to make it the most positive experience that I could. And I think that was also for myself. I needed to be excited and be happy to show up to the practice.
I even remember when we would ref your games, I remember you just being baller and you just were incredible and you stood out and you just shined. And obviously that's normally most people don't get that because they're with a similar level of playing too. And I just feel like you were able to leverage that. Okay, this is my time to show that I'm a leader, that I can have fun, that I can win, that I can be at these practices and accept this tougher situation. You didn't just make varsity senior year. You had this whole comeback senior year redemption. You made varsity. You started as an outside hitter every game. And then you also earned all conference honorable mention, which not many people get some sort of mention or honorable mention or award when it comes to varsity levels, just because you're competing with your district or conference and the state that you're playing in. So how did that feel when you got that? How did it feel with the comeback?
To start with the comeback, the first thing I remember, even I think it was before tryouts or after tryouts, but before the season started, we went to that Michigan State volleyball camp. And I remember trying to be so impressive. Or I remember just trying so hard because I felt I had something to prove being from JV, right? I remember our coach pulling me aside and just being, calm down. You have a spot. You're going to play. Everything is fine. You don't have to try so hard or beat yourself up or that sort of thing. And I remember that kind of setting my tone for the season of, okay, you've made it. Don't worry. You're here. This isn't last season. Everything is working out. And then, starting outside, that's the goal, right? Having a starting position. And you said coming from JV, where there's other girls who have made this varsity team year after year, and being able to, start over them or play more or whatever it is like, was a huge confidence booster and reaffirmed too my own knowledge and the fact that I was good. No, I can play this sport. And it just, I think, brought a calm over me. And I loved senior year. I think we had so much fun. I remember the adrenaline of game days and I wanted to show off. I'm here. I'm going to hit hard, and I'm going to impress everybody in the crowd.
Yep.
And that's where I got my adrenaline from. I just want to come up or come out here and show off. And then that end of the season, all conference, honorable mention, that was a shock. I think they announced it at the banquet and I had no inclination of that prior. And that was really cool. And I think that also just really reaffirmed the fact that other people noticed too, this comeback story, if you will. And I was later told that was something that I wasn't even necessarily put up for by our coach. That was just recognized by other coaches in the conference. Somehow my name was out there and they knew my story, and that was awarded to me. And that was really cool too.
Get bittersweet ending where it was, okay, it sucks that my high school career is over, but I got this validation of how great this season was. And then back to the MSU camp. So if anybody's been to a college camp, whether it's with your varsity team or just an individual camp, sometimes you'll go stay in the dorms, the college. And funny for us, we went to you said the Michigan State camp, and Alyssa and I were roommates at that camp. So we were already given a little glimpse of dorm life together, and we ended up living together as freshmen at Michigan State the following year too. But I just remember us always stealing a stack of cookies from the calf that we were eating at, and we would just stack them up for each night that we were, what are we going to do with all these cookies? But we just kept taking them, and we were going to be stocked because we were so sore after every day. We got to the point where our coach at the time, he would shove some of us in the car, drive us to the practice. Do you remember that?
Instead of walking across
campus. Instead of walking across campus, he would put us in the car, drive us, go pick up the other girls. And thank gosh, though, he did that because it was awful. I don't think I've ever been, especially when your body's not used to that. I don't think I've ever been so sore in my life.
And the campus is so big, and those camps push you. It's tough.
It's
tough. It's all day. And yeah, if you're listening and you're going to Michigan State, South Campus cookies are where it's at.
Seriously, they were baller. I want you to talk about the best hit that you've ever gotten and why you remember it and how impactful that was for you.
Best hit I've ever had in my life was off of the right side. It was when you're outside and you're got to stay put for a play until you can move to your spot. My setter, she was perfect. She set me the most perfect ball. It landed in front of the 10-foot line. And I swear to God, I've never done that. I don't think before or since, because despite my height, am not a great jumper and not as nice part. It bounced. It hit the ground and then it ricocheted up and hit my friend on the other team that I've actually played club with before right in the face. And she had to go to our trainer because she had a bloody nose from it. And I felt bad about that. But then also, because the very next play I was subbing out because I would have gone into the back row. And our assistant coach just looks at me and she's like, where the heck did that come from? It was just one of those things where you sit down and you can't help but smile because it was so sick. I'll never forget it. It was incredible. It was against Lakeland and I felt bad.
When you have those validated situations where you're, wait, I did something even a little bit different that time. And it's, what the heck was it? It's sometimes good to really look inward on what would that little bit of change do? And sometimes it's confidence. Sometimes it's not thinking about what you're doing. Sometimes it's not expecting to get the ball or hit it. And I think it's just, there's so many factors that when something like that happens, do it again or find out what worked. And sometimes it's the littlest things that we can't see. And that's why I'm always, videos are great while you're at practice or have your coach video you or something because you can see what you look. I feel like we think we know what we're doing, but actually from an outside perspective, it looks completely different. And it's so cool to get those moments of incredible validation of what you are capable of, because we've had like D1 volleyball players in our program and could probably hit the 10-foot line often, but it's not like they did that every single hit because it just depends on the pass. It depends on the set. It depends on the blocking on the other side. It depends on their defense. And I just remember a few memories from a girl that went D1 that we played with. And I remember 2 of them that were 10-foot kills out of the middle, which is hard to do to a point, right? And it's just, even people, you can be an amazing player. You can be going the D1 route and you still don't get those all the time. So it's really cool when that happens. All right. I need you to inform me on one of your terms
Yes.
So just go after it. I don't even know how to
Oh,
ask this.
okay. I informed Allie that there was a portion of my senior season where I had the yips.
I was, what the heck are the yips, lady? I've never heard that
So
in my life.
So if you don't know what the yips are, it's this inexplainable period where you cannot do anything that you previously could do. So for me, it was hitting. I couldn't hit a ball over a net. I was set in a game, it would not go over. It hit the tape, it'd go out of bounds. It lasted for weeks, it felt. And if you've ever experienced that, it's so frustrating because you don't know what you're doing wrong. It feels everything is the same except this mental block that then causes a physical block. And it was awful. I remember wanting to be subbed out. I remember not wanting to get set, which again, if you know me, rare for me, set me every time. But it sucked. I know that I could only maybe get a tip over. I felt useless and I was letting the team down. And honestly, I don't even know what got me out of it. I think just one day in the game, I finally made a hit that went inbounds that didn't hit the net. And then I was okay. That's the start of the end of this terrible little period. But it sucks. You're so confused and you don't know how to fix it. And it's probably entirely mental and you just gotta move past it. But yeah, I think it lasted like 2 weeks. It
Do
felt
you
a
think
long
it's
time. I made this error 3, 4 times in a row and then it just kept happening. It's when you shank a pass and you need to get your head out of it for the next play and you can't and you shank another one and then it leads to another one. And I think that it was entirely me just having this doubt in myself. As soon as the set would come and be, oh, great, I'm going to miss this. And that's just not the way you can think. You have to tell yourself, okay, that one missed, but the next one I'm going to kill. And I just couldn't get out of it.
It has to be such a short-term memory game. Every single time you touch the ball, it's okay, immediately forget about it. And I feel that's so much easier said than done. It just kept happening. And then once I feel like there was probably a switch of, oh, now this is working, or I can do this. And it just pulls you out of something that
It was controlling the things I could control. I could still cover my other hitters. I could still set or pass or whatever it is. And not to toot my own horn, but I think I have very good court perception. I can spot holes. I can see where the ball needs to go as I'm approaching, right? It's in that split second decision. It's hard to develop. You just have to have an overall court awareness, I feel. And I think having those little moments of, okay, I can set it far front row across from me, or I can tip it here or whatever. I think it was just doing those little things first. And then maybe it would transition into a roll shot that I knew I could get over. And then that would build into my actual big approach spike. So I think it was, yeah, just doing the little things again and getting those plays where I could. And then it finally developed into being normal again.
it's hard. And I feel a lot of people go through that at some point of their sports careers. And I feel as a hitter, if you're only hitting, that's your one time to show as a hitter what you can do. It's not like you have other options. So it's like you're doing similar things. You said you felt comfortable tipping, which was maybe a good outlet, but it's when you are playing a sport where you're fulfilling one role. I appreciate you sharing that. From your perspective, obviously freshman year we lived together and then junior we lived together in college. And we're so lucky to have had good roommate situations. I feel like we always just figured it out. There was never a time where we're in this huge fight or whatever. Living with somebody's hard, but I feel like we always found a way to make it work where we're willing to live together again junior year. I did want to ask you, because I've never asked anybody else about this and I didn't really have anybody else to ask about it. But when I was on the club team at MSU, from your perspective, how was that having a roommate that was, I don't know, in that dynamic of things? Just to preface, obviously I wasn't on the D1 team, so it wasn't that demanding, but it was still me going to late night practices. And sometimes it worked out because you had to work too. So thank gosh we got to walk together and still have that time together.
I don't know if you remember, but I also obviously tried out for club. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, I convinced you to. I don't think you
Did
were
you?
going to. Yeah, I remember I saw tryouts were coming up, and I don't know that if you just didn't see it or you weren't ever planning on doing it, but I was, let's go. Come on, let's go
Yeah.
try out. When you made the team and I didn't, I think there was a small part of me that was jealous for sure. I was like, damn, I wanted to do that too. And I was definitely jealous a little bit of the new friendships you got to make and still getting to play competitively for sure. But I think the beauty of college is nobody's on the same routine. You can find all your niches. You can find all your different friends or clubs or activities or whatever it is. And she said, because I was working at the rec center anyway, we had that fun little benefit of being at the same place at the same time. I worked late, you practiced late, and then we go back to the dorm. And that was awesome. But I also went and played a co-ed and women's intramural team. And that was fun. And that was with different people. And yeah. And so after that initial, I would say, little sadness, jealousy moment passed, then you just get on with it and you figure out who you are in college. It's just so
Mhm.
cool.
You made so many good friendships from your job at IM West too. It was really cool to see how different avenues can work out. You can have your mindset on one thing or one club or joining a sorority or any of the things that are possible. And then you're going to potentially default to a different path that made so much more sense.
The fun thing too is because of our different experiences, we made different friends and then we brought each other into other friends. I knew a lot of your teammates and you knew a lot
Mm-hmm.
of my coworkers and things like that. So
Yeah.
college, you find yourself, but you also can bring your friends along and you meet people you'd have never met because of what your friends are doing too.
For sure. You can still be inclusive even if you're not on the same exact path or same exact schedule. You can still find ways to incorporate each other's separate lives into others. The more people, the more friends you make, that's a positive thing. Alyssa and I have so many just crazy memories from high school, in college, when I was setting up just the podcast interview and things like that. I was just going through different chapters of our lives. And I feel we've been through so many significant chapters. It's just crazy how much we're the same, but also different from when we first met as freshmen in high school to now as full adults and getting closer to being 30 years old.
To say
Like,
that.
we met half of our age ago.
Yeah.
Which like
13 years
crazy.
ago.
It's crazy. So it's just amazing how, again, you said earlier, you might not be friends with everybody that you thought you were going to from high school or college, but things always work itself out and the true people are always going to be there through those chapters. We've dealt with some psychotic drama of others and figured it out. And it's been rewarding because now we get to laugh about it. Alyssa and I were seniors. I was dating somebody who was already graduated and playing hockey in Canada. And then he had one of his good buddies that went to high school with us. I already knew of him. He was also playing hockey in Canada with Kyle, and who's my husband now, baby daddy, actually. And so I was obviously inviting my boyfriend at the time to come to our prom as seniors because we had an only senior prom. One of Kyle's buddies was single at the time. So we were, this would be fun. And I felt we had a good time. It wasn't,
Prom
there
was
was no
fun.
pressure. It was, we would go do other stuff together. We went to a Justin Bieber concert. We would do some things as this little group of us. And there was not any pressure for Alyssa to be with this guy or any dating pressure. But it's just funny because I feel, I don't even know how much time passed. It had to have been, it was
Girl,
months.
it was years.
Was it
If
years?
if we're talking about what I think you're
Yes.
talking about, it
Yes.
was our junior year of college that this
That's
happened.
crazy. Yeah. So we were seniors. And again, Kyle, my husband's friend, was single and you brought him to prom and it was, you guys didn't even kiss. It was not
Nope.
even, it was not even that. And then 3 years, Alyssa started getting blown up on social media, in the comments, in the
In the
DMs,
comments
right?
of my prom photo with him, which by the way is obviously down my timeline at this point because it's 3 years have passed of
Yeah.
posting. She had to snoop and then I got DMs too, but then she immediately blocked me. So I only had my screenshots that I think God took from my notifications because if I hadn't, I would have gone into Instagram and they would have been gone. But
I know. And then you sent them to me and then I definitely handled that a little bit.
yeah. But for background, this girl claimed to have been dating this friend when he went to prom with me, which they were not, and was calling me bad things and saying, how dare you, on all the fun stuff. And then I sent it to Allie and Kyle.
We've just been through random situations where people are crazy and we're, what did we do to deserve this?
I didn't even get the chance to respond to her myself because she blocked me. And I obviously didn't have her phone number because I didn't know her. And then from that day on, my Instagram turned private.
That's actually crazy and sad, but probably good to a point for other things. And then it's funny because homeboy totally admitted how crazy she was being too. And this is just nuts. And then now I think they have kids together and all this stuff, but just chaos. So I love bringing up that story because I wish we could almost pull up Instagram DMs because it's just unfathomable how,
Oh, I'm pretty sure I
there-
still have the screenshots.
the drama. And here we are now as adults and it's, what is that worth? It's not even worth anything.
It wasn't worth anything then either. It was
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I hadn't
Yeah.
talked to him since prom.
So wild. We've always just stayed connected, even regardless of what around us is changing. And obviously life ebbs and flows where you move to Wisconsin for a cup, you move to Minnesota for work. And I've had my life changes too. And I think even if you have significant life changes or you're in different places in life or your jobs have different schedules. It's really cool the friendships that you can maintain regardless of all of that, right? Because all those factors are against your
Mhm.
friendships. And it really shows a lot and means a lot, I think, when you're always able to come back together and look back on those times as just good memories and know that there's more to come. And now Alyssa's an auntie, so she's stuck with me in Easton forever. But
Yeah. For those of you also that don't know, I was there for Allie's proposal. I was in her
mhm,
wedding. We've stayed
yeah,
so close, and I'm so grateful
mhm.
because distance isn't easy and that can break some friendships or cut communication. But every time we come back together, we were seeing each other yesterday, which, yeah, I'm just so grateful for.
Yeah, yeah. We have so many memories we could get into too, but it's so great to have them. And it's just really cool when you're able to be so appreciative of friendship because obviously most friendships you have memories even if they fizzle out, but it's you're so much more appreciative of the ones that are still around because it could be the tiniest thing as sitting on the couch playing cards. I think those are even some of my most favorite memories was when it was just me, Lindsay, and Kyle or whomever was around at the time and we would just sit there and enjoy a whole evening of playing cards and having
Yeah.
drinks or something else. And it was just things that we just love to do together. And we've had other crazy scenarios where we've had people in our apartment try to start drama. We've had almost every situation possible of breakups, friend drama, everything. And it's crazy how life works out. But at the end of the day, right now, all of that probably meant to happen for a reason, one way or another.
Totally. And here we are.
And here we are. Let's get into your current life.
So I'm currently in sourcing at Target. I source fabric for clothes. Shout out Performance, All in Motion, Target, go buy it. But yeah, I
They should
moved out.
sponsor you on top of paying you for this.
But
It's yeah.
yeah, I moved out to Minnesota 4 years ago, which is pretty crazy. And I've worked at Target since I graduated college 5 years ago. So that's crazy too. But yeah, when I moved out here, I had a pretty good group already established just because we got to start together at Target. We were all coming out of college and a lot of people came from Michigan State. So we had a nice little familiar group. And then a lot of us moved and a lot of us have stayed. So it's really nice to have come to a new city, not having to know no one. It definitely helps your social life and your anxiety and stuff that. And I played some rec leagues out here. I still try to play in co-ed volleyball leagues, usually at the summer outdoor one, but I also did do a winter in-court one, which was really fun. And I do a golf league now too. So still trying to stay active, stay with it. And I even ref one season of indoor volleyball and honestly didn't get playing may not transition into reffing for
Yeah.
all. And I coached 1 year too, but that was back in high school, just a 12U team. So that was fun. But reffing is nothing, any of that. And I just didn't being that decision maker, honestly. And I was not elevated, right? I was still just standing on the court. So some of those far line calls, I'm to just be honest and let me know what it was because I can't see it that well. And yeah, I only did that for a season, but I did it because I wanted to stay doing something with volleyball. But yeah, I don't think I'll be doing it again.
Do you think you'll coach ever again?
I think there's possibility for it. I think once I really truly established whether that be staying here in Minnesota or moving back to Michigan or moving somewhere else, who knows, I could see myself trying to coach a high school freshman team or assistant coach a JV or varsity. I don't think I have the bandwidth to jump into head coaching a higher team. That's a lot of work and effort, and you have to have the time for it because it matters and it's important to those girls and you don't want to half-ass it. So if I have that bandwidth and time, I think I would love to do that. I think coaching is so fun, especially if you get to do it with somebody that you can know and are friends with. So I could definitely see myself doing that, but I do hope to keep playing in rec leagues and doing adult leagues for sure, just because I love it.
Before we get into some last rapid fire questions, I did have a question for you. I want to go back to you deciding where you wanted to go for college. And obviously, you're a Spartan your whole life. That's very important to both of our families, I feel, and to us. And it's funny because I remember senior year, you were debating on between Michigan State or going to Loyola in Chicago. And
Yep.
so we were planning to room together if you went to state. And if not, you would have had a different path. What do you think living out of state for college would have been versus being able to have the support system at home? Obviously, you still being able to move away after college or even during college for internships.
As that decision wasn't easy for me, I was back and forth on it a lot. And I think at the end of the day, you have to take into consideration truly every aspect of college. So for me, going to a school with Big Ten sports and things that was super important. Or it didn't have to be Big Ten, but sports and being able to tailgate or have those game day experiences was big. I wanted that full big college experience. And that's not for everybody. Some people want to go to a smaller school or have that closer environment. And so I think sitting down to figure out what environment you want to be in is really big. And then from there, you can say, okay, do I want to stay in state or go out of state? Obviously, pros of in state is you can go home or you can have family visit or whatever it is. But out of state, you have a little bit more freedom. You have a little bit more independence. And you have to, I think, grow up a little bit faster because those close helps and support systems aren't able to drive to you in an hour or two, right? It's a little bit harder and it's a little bit different, but it's has so many growth opportunities too. So I think you just have to decide what's right for you. And I wouldn't honestly take anybody else's opinion into consideration. Your family's probably always going to want you to stay as close as possible. But if you know you've always wanted to live in North Carolina, then go. Now's the time, because when you get older and you get families or you get whatever it is, it becomes harder and you have more people to look after and you have more responsibility. And so I think college is the time to go do whatever you want to do. Just trust it, and nothing's permanent. If you end up not liking the college you went to, you can transfer. It's not that deep, as the kids would say. Another big part of my consideration was my major, that if I had decided to go pre-law, I was going to consider law much more heavily because they have a much better pre-law undergraduate program. And then business was MSU, supply chain. And I know obviously supply chain program undergrad at MSU is huge.
For Loyola, did you get into the pre-law program, or was that kind of MSU where you just get into the school and then you apply into it?
I think I would have just declared it as my major. I don't
Okay.
think that there was a specific program I had to get into, or you said if there was, it might have been the year after freshman year or something like that. I don't remember
Okay.
for sure. No one come fact check me on that, but I
No.
think that's the case.
This is interesting because U of M, all of our friends knew what they were going to do because they had to apply to the specific
Program.
school. So they had to do LSNA, right? Or the business school. There were certain, or the College of Engineering, they had to specifically apply to that. And I feel like if you don't know what you want to do yet forever, I feel that's normal. People who are 50 don't even know what they always want to do forever. And degrees,
Outside your degree, you can
yeah,
switch your major. At the end of the day, and this is so true, sorry to college universities, but it's all about networking and it's all about experience. And you're going to gain that in the real world. And college definitely helps gain your independence and helps you grow up and figure things out for yourself. But your specific major, I don't think is the end all be all of what you end up doing.
I totally agree. If you're looking to play volleyball in college too, most of the time you have to go out of state just because of the availability of programs. And that's just something that
Totally.
goes along with it too. So it's just something to take into consideration. You said what you're most content with and what is best for you as the next year goes on. And then the year after that, it doesn't define the future after that, I guess, is what I'm saying. Even for me, I switched my degree halfway through freshman year and it still worked out maybe even better than if I didn't, which is crazy, but it just works out for a reason.
Yeah. And that was another thing is I knew I wasn't playing college volleyball and I knew I didn't want to go to a small school where I would have had to have gone to play volleyball. So if you want to play a sport, that's a whole different factor, right, into your decision making.
Nobody in our school, obviously I saw the one person played D1, maybe some girls went and played a lower division, but we did not have any recruiting help. We used Huddle and had that for a video, and we would watch that maybe every other week or something, depending on our schedule. I only remember one coach coming up to me about it, and I don't know if you remember him. His name was Peter. He was Gus's assistant coach.
Yeah.
He was actively recruiting the girls for that school, and he brought it up to me a few times and was like, if you're interested, let me know. But I wasn't really interested, so he never really kept bringing it up. But other than that, I never was brought up, hey, let's look at D3 schools. Hey, let's look at D2 schools. It's not that hard to fulfill a recruiting journey. And I just did a podcast on this last week. You are in control of those types of decisions too. And just because coaches aren't reaching out to you doesn't mean that you're not capable of playing at like D1, D2, D3, NAIA, any of those levels. And I just think it was weird for us that we never really had that. I'm sure that's consistent across the board. Let's finish up with some rapid fire questions. What was the worst volleyball fashion trend that you participated in?
I played volleyball in middle school, so probably the high-dyed knee-high socks tucked under your knee pads. That's brutal. Looking back on it now, they were in my school official photos.
Yeah, they were so cool though at the time.
And they were really cool.
I had the knee-high socks, and I remember going to my first week of 7th grade practice. and my spandex were almost down to my knees, and I was
The biker
embarrassed.
shorts, yeah.
Yeah. I was and then I started folding them up and told my mom to go buy me shorter ones.
No, I was the same. When I started, I was like, "Yeah, these long ones I think will be nice."
I've noticed when I was coaching the national teams, there were girls starting to wear white knee pads again,
That's
white
crazy.
shoes. And back when we were playing in high school, if you wore white knee
That was
pads,
so
yeah, so cool. And now it's a cool and thing. And then now they're wearing leggings, and I'm why are we wearing
oh, I
leggings
know.
on the court? The one time I wore leggings playing volleyball was in a team sports class, and I ripped a hole in both of my Lulu
Yeah,
leggings. I just never get the legging thing. It's nice because you don't have to shave your legs, but
I could do
just
it. Unless I'm playing casually intramural, not for me.
who's the one teammate that you've ever had that you'd want in a zombie apocalypse?
In a zombie apocalypse, gosh, I can't think. Oh, I got you. Jolie, shout out Jolie. I feel she's the most outdoorsy person I've played with that I can think of, and she'd be really good.
That was a great answer
Thank you.
because I don't know what I would say, and yep, I would say her too. What's your go-to warm-up song for games? Anything?
Ooh, back in the day, it was honestly whatever was most popular. I feel you throw on Party in the USA or just some upbeat pop song, and I was heck yeah. Or I think we had Eminem playing before games. It was whatever was popular. Drake maybe in high school. I don't know.
That was my go-to was I feel Eminem because that's what was playing and it was just always
Yeah.
got me in the zone. What would you tell 17-year-old Alyssa after she made JV and then went into the car and was upset about it? Would you go back and say anything?
I think, believe it or not, 17-year-old Alyssa had a pretty good handle on the situation. But I think, if anything, I would just be there to tell her everything's going to be fine. The season is going to go well. You're going to do great. You're going to keep playing through high school and the rest of your life. This moment is not a defining moment. And it feels embarrassing right now, but in 10 years, you won't think anything of it.
Love that. What was one thing you wish you knew as a young athlete?
I wish, honestly, that I had put in more work outside of the sport to be in shape. I think my mom made me do 8th grade training, physical training thing, and I hated it at the time. And granted, I still probably wouldn't get today, but it really does improve your jumping or your strength or your hitting or whatever it is, your reflexes, if you are putting in that dedication outside of the season and going to the gym and training your muscles. And I didn't do
Well,
that.
even making sure you're going off-season conditioning or just showing face at a minimum, and then on top of it, what your body can get from it. Just because I feel at that age where baby giraffes, middle school and even into high school, still believe it or not, we think we know everything. We think we're coordinated. We're not. It's just one of those things that the more things you do with your body, the better it can get a better grasp on everything that you're doing, right? What is your message to the girl who didn't make the team she wanted or didn't make the team at all?
My message is if you love it, just keep going, keep trying, keep finding ways to incorporate yourself. It doesn't have to be playing, it doesn't have to be coaching or reffing, it can be watching. I don't know, just keep pushing yourself to be involved because your passion will shine through. And if you keep practicing and improving, you'll hit your goals. You just can't let these moments define you.
Going from private school to public school, any big differences, any big impacts?
I think that transition for me was smoother than maybe most. I think if you are somebody going through that, obviously maybe your sport isn't a fall sport or maybe you don't play sports, but I do think getting involved in something before school starts or right at the beginning of the year is so beneficial. Just putting yourself out there to meet new people because the social aspect of school is huge. You don't want to be the kid who doesn't have a partner, who isn't talking to anybody, and it's hard to break out of that shell. So I think when you can put yourself in positions where it's doing something you enjoy or you're bonding with people over similar interests and likes, that's huge. That breaks the ice right there. So yeah, I think that the social aspect is the biggest transition and coming into a place where people already know each other. You just have to work a little bit harder to talk to people and get out of your comfort zone.
And then last question for you. Any breakup advice for our listeners or helping a friend going through a breakup?
Breakup advice. Honestly, I'm going to say it again. Not that deep. It feels it's your whole world. And in the moment, it might be, but you're going to look back on it 10 years from now and think, oh my gosh, that was so silly or that drama was so unnecessary. And it's easier said than done, obviously. But just remember that everything happens for a reason. Support your friends, lean on the people that are there for you. And at the end of the day, it's the girls. hang
It's
out
the
with your
worst.
friends and make each other laugh and get through it together.
Down the road, there's a bigger picture. This is exactly why I started this podcast, for stories like Alyssa's. Not everyone goes NCAA D1. Not everybody has the perfect trajectory in their sports career, but everybody who stays in the game and sport they love has a story worth telling. And Alyssa, I just want to thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for being vulnerable, hilarious, and always the realist. If anybody related to any part of this episode, setbacks, comebacks, crazy ex-girlfriends that they have to deal with of others, definitely share this with somebody who needs to hear it. And remember that the JV journey sometimes makes the best varsity story. And thank you all for joining She Aced That this week, and we'll see you next Wednesday.